Beauty is in my hands, I have it all over the world. Many beauties are unlucky, except for Chan. So she bound the stunning beauty system and went to various small worlds to change the fate of the beauty. The cannon fodder that dies in just one chapter of the apocalyptic text is contested by the male and female protagonists to give away the golden finger. The cannon fodder NPC in Infinite Flow is jointly sent out of the death game by the boss and players. The mentally disabled unmarried man in the male frequency article is crazily pursued for love by real and fake young masters, unable to do so from a rural girl who was deceived into selling her body and heart, to a generation of emperors who have been sought after by countless people in history. From the fake daughter who fell to the bottom overnight in the campus literature, to the only goddess who stepped on the campus F4. The bumpy fate and difficult life all turned into a smooth journey after the arrival of Chan. Sincerity is the most useless thing. As long as I don't like you, you will definitely like me, Ling Chan. 1. The female protagonist has a heart of stone and is very deceitful too. There are many characters in each small world, and the female lead may not necessarily have a CP3. The female lead is the most beautiful, and everyone loves her, all for supporting purposes. 4. It should be worn slowly. Keywords of the novel. Black moonlight of quickly penetrating in Shura Field Shark Crazy. No pop-ups. Black moonlight of quickly penetrating in Shura Field Shark Crazy Complete Collection. Download TXT. Black moonlight of quickly penetrating in Shura Field Shark Crazy. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 1. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. In the midst of the darkness, Chan heard a voice. Many beauties are unlucky. They possess stunning beauty, but their lives are full of ups and downs. Ling Chan, as a stunning beauty with great happiness in the vast world, are you willing to bind to the stunning beauty system and go to small worlds to save those beauties who have been devastated by fate? I am willing. Make Chan's consciousness begin to sink. A voice in the void said softly, the peasant woman was blessed by heaven and gave birth to a face with a beautiful appearance. Coincidentally, during the disaster year, she was sold by her family to a brothel, and a few years later, she became famous all over the world and became the most famous flower queen in Jiangnan. She was favored by Prince An and was taken into the house. The two armies faced off, and the enemy asked Prince An to choose between his wife and favored concubine. Prince An chose his legitimate wife. My beloved concubine fell into the enemy camp and suffered a lot of torture, but survived. When King An successfully ascended the throne and married a new empress to the emperor, she was brought to her side and raised in the study, polishing ink and adding fragrance. She was greatly favored. In the end, she climbed the city wall and jumped down from the highest point of the imperial city. At the age of 7, she was sold, 13 was a prostitute, 15 was an extramarital affair, 16 suffered a tragic miscarriage, 20 jumped over the city wall. Her life was entrusted to no good person, and it was difficult and unfortunate. Can you change her life? Her gaze was blurred, making Chan's eyes dazzled. It seemed that something had covered her face and eyes, and the rough texture made her cheeks ache. Ling Chan frowned, feeling unhappy, and lifted the cloth in front of her. In front of her, she was blinded by the light and closed her eyes. She only heard the people around her take a deep breath of air and let out an ignorant exclamation. A hoarse voice couldn't hide its excitement and said, "Look at my girl's face. That's how the fairy daughter in the sky looks. Auntie. 10 taels of silver is worth it." Ling Chan opened her eyes and saw the middle-aged woman in red and silver wearing clothes in front of her with a silly expression, staring straight at her face. The voice continued to excitedly promote, "If it weren't for the disaster, our family wouldn't have been able to survive anymore. We wouldn't have sold Xiaoni so early, raised her well, and sent her to the mansion to be a maid for the young master. A bright future is in sight." Ling Chan. As a maid, can there still be a bright future? Ling Chan looked around at the people on the third floors, both amazed and reluctant, each with a yellow and thin face, withered and sparse hair, and a look of malnutrition, an ugly face soaked in the hardships of life. Underneath her feet was a rudimentary yellow mud ground, and above her head was a leaky broken roof. In the crevices of the crowd, she could see tattered door frames, making Chan herself sitting on the only wooden chair in the room, while the adults next to her could only stand. This environment is too harsh. Is this the day of crossing over to being sold? Ling Chan touched her face and said, "No way." Nair, standing behind Ling Chan, was her original mother, whose voice was filled with sadness and exhaustion. "You should obediently follow your aunt, and from now on, you won't have to go hungry with your parents, not to mention luxury." Under the heavy pressure of life, she seemed to have lost even the strength of sadness. Mother's hand gently patted Ling Chan's shoulder, allowing her to see her rough skin and thick calluses on her hands. Looking down at my hands again, my skin was extremely delicate, with a hint of malnutrition, but it was delicate and smooth, without any broken skin. Such a poor farming family, but Chan has a pair of hands that are obviously not used to work. This family is taking good care of their original body, and they are trying their best to pamper their original body within their own abilities. 10 taels of silver cannot buy me, Ling Chan said. 50 taels. Serious mind clearance. The female lead is a bad woman. The female lead is a bad woman. The female lead is a bad woman. He has good acting skills and is very good at pretending, even deceiving readers when he is ruthless. This article has a knife. We cannot guarantee the safety, happiness of any male character, and there may be the possibility of making bento moves. Everyone must make way for the female lead's goal, as she loves to cause trouble. If you don't like it, let's not read it. There are countless good articles to read. Please don't give the author a low score. Coming with a new book. Stick My Angel Babies. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. A group of people looked at Ling Chan and were all dumbfounded. 50 taels. It's enough for such a poor farmer's flour to last for a few years. The lion speaks loudly. But this little girl swept away her silent and autistic expression just now and lifted her face. The stunning beauty of this face made Higu's eyes ache in the sunlight. How could such a good color come from such a rough place? What a phoenix has entered the straw pile. This face that can bring a bright future wherever it is delivered is her ladder to the sky. Higu was determined to win, but she refused to let the little girl in front of her grasp. She sneered, 50 liang. Even your poor family can't buy 50 liang. I've been living in the Qinhuai River for so many years, auntie. What kind of beauty have I never seen before? The little girl has an ordinary appearance, is not young, but has a big voice. After saying these words, I felt a chill in my heart. How could this be called plain appearance? The ladies in the palace may not necessarily have such beauty. Ling Chan looked up and said calmly, my family really needs this money. Auntie, please be kind today. I will definitely remember your kindness and repay it twice the next day. If other little girls don't have long eyes and dare to speak to her in such a confident tone, and he needs to punish her and adjust her thoroughly. The girls who were sold into the building, which one has no beauty? If you think that with those 2 or 3 good colors, you can soar to the sky, that's a joke. It's just a plaything. I don't know when consumables will die, dare you talk back to her. But this in front of me, no matter how much the poor farmer dotes on them, they still don't care enough for them. Their hair is withered and dry, and although their skin is white, it is as dry and hard as wallpaper, not as shiny as the girl in the building. Unfortunately, this face looks really beautiful, with all its facial features exquisite, and every line is just right, accurately stepping on the line of beauty. It is said that beauty looks at the skin but not the bones, but in Aunt He's opinion, the most important thing for a beauty is the spirit. The little girl in front of me already has such an aura. Her eyes were clear and clear, as if they were the warm sun in winter. Looking over solemnly, it was difficult for her to resist. Such a beautiful little girl, before she could grow up, was already shining brightly in the crowd, and even needed her family to cover her face and raise her. She has such a calm and talkative personality. Which man is not attracted to her? Who is willing to hurt her? Consume her? What if she takes a step back today and finds a rare commodity to live in? He-Gu agreed. After bidding farewell to her family, Ling Chan sat in He-Gu's carriage empty-handed. The host is really amazing. It's a whopping 47 taels of silver. The system's voice is extremely happy, and the host bound by oneself is the most powerful in the world. On the original fate line, and he only spent 3 liang to take away the original owner. The first step to changing your destiny is to start with a skyrocketing value. The system whispers in your ear. Next, you will be taken by He-Gu to her flower workshop, trained into a famous prostitute with both beauty and skill, and taken in by Prince An, becoming his mistress. He likes you very much, but thinks you have a lowly status and are not worthy of being a wife. He will wait until he takes you as his wife and then bring you into the mansion to be taken as a concubine. Garbage scumbag. We must beat him up. The system cursed the silly male lead and pulled you to imagine a better future. Host, you are so smart, you can definitely get rid of the original tragic life and give the original lead a good ending. Let Chan hesitate to speak. The system didn't pay attention and continued to chatter. Those prostitutes in the brothels will bully you, but don't be afraid. With you, no one can hurt you. Ling Chan yawned and said, In just 2 days, the system with the winning ticket in hand panicked. Why are we getting further and further away from Jinling? He-Gu wouldn't want to sell us, would she? Am I her cargo? Ling Chan was a bit amused. Don't you worry, Ling Chan was not in a hurry at all. What's there to worry about? With my face around, and he wouldn't be willing to sell me at a low price. She must be looking for a better place for me, but... The system hesitated. Are you using the original owner's face? It has always been so beautiful, haven't you been sent to the brothel? Ling Chan touched her smooth face and couldn't help but laugh. Do you really think that just being beautiful can make the world tolerant of me? The original owner was locked in a dilapidated house by her family since childhood, unwilling to let her take a step forward, and developed a submissive personality. She has a good face, but how dare He-Gu let her go alone to explore her future? That's a meat bun that never comes back. Ling Chan said, beauty is a double-edged sword that brings not only benefits but also harm. For example, the original owner, despite her beauty, lacked the ability to protect herself and slid all the way towards the abyss of fate. Ling Chan's task is to save the beautiful woman, change the bumpy life, and naturally not let herself fall into brothels again. She asked Aunt He for a price, not only to improve the lives of her family, but also to point at Aunt He. Ling Chan is so beautiful and expensive, why would Aunt He be willing to leave her in the brothel to be wasted by ordinary wealthy merchants? This is 50 taels of silver. Aunt He would never do such a loss-making business. Where is she going to take us? The system's voice was a bit panicked. If you don't go to the brothel, I can't help you avoid danger. What's the point of hanging up? The unknown is the most interesting, Ling Chan chuckled lightly. I don't know where she's going to take me now, but I know where we'll ultimately go. Imperial Palace. The best beauty naturally deserves the highest authority. The carriage drove for a long time and finally stopped at the door of a wealthy family. The majestic gate and the heavy stone lion all showcased the owner's extraordinary identity. He-Gu reminded Ling Chan, I can't accompany you into this mansion. Someone will come and take you away later. You are obedient. With your face, who wouldn't like you? She lovingly put Ling Chan's face and repeated, no one will not like you, no one will not love you. Ling Chan just smiled and said, I won't forget how kind He-Gu was to me. He is so kind and will repay you tomorrow. He-Gu felt a daze for a moment. After spending the past few days together, she truly cherished this little girl from the bottom of her heart. These few words came from her heart, not from beating. But who would believe the madam's sincerity? Looking at Ling Chan's plain face, and he gave a bitter smile and said nothing more. She sorted out Ling Chan's curtains and escorted her off the carriage. In no time, the examining mother arrived. Among the group of well-behaved girls, the small and short one with a curtain fence was particularly abrupt, which was very unpleasant. The nanny furrowed her brows and walked forward, brushing away the curtain fence with a loud swipe. "What are you putting up with me? Spectrum." She spoke with a fierce voice, and it came to an end. The maids waiting for review around, as well as the person who brought them Yazi, all stared at Ling Chan. "Akan. I'm not afraid anymore." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 3. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. The originally noisy environment suddenly became quiet, and the sound of heavy objects landing became particularly clear. With a thud, followed by a panicked shout, "Young master, are you okay? Young master, are you okay?" Curiously, Chan turned her head and looked towards the commotion. At first glance, she saw a little boy sitting on a horse with a straight back. Her hair was like a crow feather, her eyebrows were like a knife cut, her eyes were calm, and her face on the horse was proud, cold, proud, cool, and pulled. But looking at Ling Chan, her ears turned red. Ling Chan was not very interested and glanced over to see a group of people surrounding another young master. He seemed to have fallen off a horse just now, his clothes scattered and his hair crown crooked. His white jade-like face was covered in strands of hair and dust. In the gaps surrounding his servants, Ling Chan's gaze was accurately captured. He scratched his head and awkwardly made Chan smile. Ling Chan politely smiled back. Look at him blushing and falling down in the crowd. Ling Chan withdrew her gaze and saw the nanny in front of her take a deep breath, struggling to retrieve her voice. She seemed hesitant to look directly at Ling Chan, turned her head, and instructed her servants to find a seat to escort Ling Chan into the mansion. Among the group, only Ling Chan sat, while the others, including the grandmother, gathered around and walked on their legs. Ling Chan was arranged to the best room, and the host mother came to see her. Afterwards, she even assigned a maid to specially serve Ling Chan, and there were teachers to teach her separately every day. Class is really boring. Ling Chan doesn't dislike learning, but she really hates learning how to please men, which insults the two words of learning. Reading and practicing calligraphy, playing qin, chess, calligraphy and painting, these are very good. It's not good to use them to win men's hearts. This family obviously wants to cultivate Ling Chan into a man's pet slave, with strict 1.1.1 guidance, making it difficult to find opportunities to wander. But on this day, Ling Chan saw a head sneaking out of the window behind the teacher. He locked in Ling Chan at a glance, with a big smile on his face that turned red from the sun. Ling Chan was bothering to listen to the class and gave him a smile. The beauty smiled and the room was filled with radiance. The voice of the teacher's lecture paused for a moment. But she quickly realized it and turned around in anger. She happened to see her own young master laughing foolishly, and her face turned black. She carried someone and went to complain. Ling Chan thought she had finished class and couldn't help but laugh even happier, but she heard the teacher say gently, "Copy 2 pages of female training before class can be finished." Make Chan's smile quickly disappear. You, Ling Chan, have come with a great and glorious mission. How can one study the remnants of feudalism here every day? Although the teacher is strict, as long as she doesn't keep an eye on Ling Chan, she has a way to cope. As expected, before Ling Chan could speak, the maid beside her bent down and said softly, "It doesn't matter. I'll just write for the young lady. The young lady will sit here for a rest and have a dim sum. I'll be ready in a minute. Then we can finish class." This is the maid assigned by the whole mansion to Ling Chan, who watches the qin. Gentle and approachable, considerate, best for Ling Chan. Let Chan give a sweet smile to Guan Qin. Just as I grabbed someone off the windowsill, another person's head popped out. The dark pupils scanned the empty room, reached out, and covered my thin muscular forearm on the windowsill. With a leap, I flipped in and sat steadily on the windowsill. Are you just handling the master's homework like this? Guan Qin has no manners or virtues. Please punish him, young master. Guan Qin knelt on the ground, his voice panicked. But Miss is smart and clever, not intentionally perfunctory with her homework. It's just that Miss is already familiar with her heart, so she doesn't write. Ling Chan asked curiously, are you exactly the same as the man just now? That's the second young master, Guan Qin whispered. Do you want to be talkative? The young master said coldly. Hello. Ling Chan was a bit unhappy. You came to find me but didn't talk to me, just to blame my maid. Who said I'm here to find you? What are you doing here? The scenery here is beautiful, I came here to see the flowers. The snow is about to disappear, where did the flowers come from? The system murmured softly. Let Chan know where there are flowers. She smiled and said, then why don't you want to look at me? The young master stopped speaking, and he choked his neck, half of his face facing Ling Chan. Ling Chan could see half of his red ears under his black hair. The early spring sunshine was bright, and the half-grown boy sat on the windowsill, blocking most of the sunlight, causing Chan to sit in his shadow and look up dissatisfied, saying, you're blocking my light. He jumped down silently. Ling Chan also stood up, pulled up the chin, gave up her seat, and smiled sweetly, excuse me, sister. Guan Qin was pressed onto his seat by Ling Chan, who looked at the young master in fear before turning to look at Ling Chan and saying, Mississippi. Ling Chan patted Guan Qin's shoulder in comfort and asked the young master with a smile, will you expose me? No, the young master snorted, I also want to use this move to deal with the master. So, Ling Chan curved her eyes, we are accomplices. Ling Chan suddenly approached the young master and heard his heart beating fiercely in his chest. Co-conspirator, don't you take a look at me. Fu Wenjiang felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest and land in the hands of the smiling and charming girl in the sunlight. He was at a loss, feeling that today's action had failed to the extreme. He took a sudden step back, hurriedly flipped over the windowsill, and ran away. The afterglow of the setting sun turned red, gently covering Ling Chan's black hair through the open window. During this period, the family has been very meticulous in nurturing her. Her previously malnourished state has disappeared, and she has become a charming little beauty. Guan Qin hesitated and said, what are the two young masters here for? Ling Chan thought for a moment, the one who was taken away by the teacher is second young master. They look exactly the same. Well, the eldest and second young masters are twins. Before she could finish speaking, the young master's head popped up from the windowsill and said, my name is Fu Wenjiang. If you want to know anything, come ask me. What can a maid know? After shouting, he ran away in a flash. Fu Wenjiang ran all the way, climbed over the wall and tree back to his yard, kicked the door open, and loudly said, hurry up and bring me a cup of tea. Although he didn't say a few words to, his throat was so thirsty that it was almost smoking. The whole room turned their heads to look at him, and the abandoned attendant hurriedly stepped forward to wipe the sweat off his forehead. Why is the young master's face so red? Did he get heatstroke? Fu Wenxi jumped up excitedly and said, brother, did you help me give her the gift? Fu Wenjiang said, His mind was in a daze. How could he still remember his younger brother's instructions? Twins' amazing guide. Just a brief introduction. Brother Fu Wenjiang. Unhappy brother Fu Wenxi. No mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. That day, at a glance of the startled swan in front of the whole mansion, his foolish younger brother couldn't forget that beautiful and charming girl, thinking day and night. Fu Wenjiang showed a contemptuous attitude towards his younger brother's worthless appearance. When Fu Wenxi suggested that he should lure the master away and ask his elder brother to help him give Ling Chan a gift, Fu Wenjiang laughed heartily. Just a female slave, how could Fu Wenxi give her a gift? Do you want him to personally deliver it? But he didn't refuse such a foolish plan. It seems like he's lost in thought, he really went there. In the small quiet room, I dare not look at her at all, it's embarrassing. Fu Wenjiang's face turned even darker as he threw a sachet from his pocket and said coldly, I forgot. Forgot. Fu Wen's face collapsed as he reached out to grab the sachet. Brother, what's wrong with you? Fu Wenjiang angrily said, I'm willing to go. It's already giving you face. What else do you want? Brother doesn't like Ling Chan. Fu Wenxi said strangely, how could anyone not like Ling Chan? Do you think everyone is the same as you? When you see a beautiful girl, you can't walk. Fu Wenjiang sneered, when you see a beautiful girl, you get angry. No way. Fu Wenxi was annoyed, I was watching her when she was wearing a curtain hat. That's why she was so stunned that she fell off the horse. The two glared angrily, not giving in to each other. The servants serving nearby were all dumbfounded. The young master in the mansion had a great relationship. Although the older brother had a big temper, he was always willing to coax and give way to him. Occasionally, some minor conflicts ended with the younger brother's concession. Why did it suddenly start arguing? The attendant forced his head and advised, she's just a little slave. It's not worth the anger of the two masters. If the second young master is interested, he can tell his wife. I'm sure she won't be stingy with a slave. Don't say that about her. Fu Wenxi couldn't allow anyone to mention Ling Chan in such a contemptuous tone. Do you know again? We brothers don't know as much as you do. Fu Wenjiang sneered with a strange smile. The attendant was kind enough to argue, but was scolded by the two masters. He was so scared that he broke into a cold sweat like rain and knelt down on the ground with a thud, begging for mercy. Fu Wenjiang took a deep breath and looked at his younger brother, mother obviously has great use keeping her. She won't give you anyone. I advise you to think less about it. But I heard that this group of people is all prepared for us. Except for her, everyone is prepared for us. You can choose whichever you like, anything you want is fine. As for Ling Chan, such a beauty is too wasteful for us, Fu Wenjiang sneered. Due to the bold behavior of the twins, Chan was summoned by his wife. The green smoke curled up from the hexagonal white jade incense burner, covering the agate screen on the table, and the vivid statue blurred in the smoke. The lady sat on a chair made of rosewood, with the inlaid mother-in-law in the wood and the golden thread in the 100-fold skirt complementing each other. The lady was as magnificent as this room. Madame said, Consort Xian's family is searching for young girls to serve Prince An. My husband plans to send you in. Compared to my lackluster sons, An Wang is your better choice. Madame took a sip of tea and the sound of the porcelain banging was clear. You know what to do for your own future, right? I don't know, Ling Chan pretended to be foolish. She's a bit strange. How could Madame be honest with her? In the eyes of those in high positions, someone like her is just a pawn to be played with. Just act according to orders. How could she honestly and openly tell her future plans? Madame smiled and continued, Consort Shu is not looking for a pampered maid, but for a legitimate daughter-in-law. If you go, if you are chosen, you will become the queen in the future. If you stay here, what can my two sons give you? I listened to Madame, Ling Chan said earnestly, showing loyalty. It was Madame who saved me from Aunt He. I will do whatever Madame says. Ling Chan's acting skills can only be described as average, but she has a face that doesn't seem to lie. Or rather, every person she gazes at with sincere eyes will involuntarily want to believe her. How could such a beauty deceive people? She honestly reveals her desires, and some people are competing to fulfill them for her. What is the need for her to lie? Madam is no exception. She looked at Chanhua's sparkling eyes, trusting and focused, and her heart softened. Such a pure and innocent child, so innocent and easy to believe, sent to the cannibalistic royal family, even the bones and debris will be chewed clean. The lady, who originally only wanted to strike, changed her mind and made Chan so naive. We must teach it well. The lady quickly made up her mind, you move into my yard. Ling Chan. No. She doesn't need to head over to teach the director. Madam has a clever expression on her face, making it difficult to perfunctory. Ling Chan's thin arms couldn't twist Madam's thick thighs, so she eventually moved into Madam's courtyard with tears in her eyes. Guanqin can no longer help Ling Chan with her homework. Because my wife had free time, she flipped through Ling Chan's homework and immediately realized that she was being tricked. Ling Chan can't believe it. Guanqin started writing after following her, and the handwriting of the two people was identical under deliberate imitation. Not to mention that the stack of homework that Madam looked at was all written by watching the piano. Ling Chan never does homework after class. Madam, although I didn't write very well, I put in a lot of effort. As someone who respects teachers and values morals, how could I ask a maid to help with my homework? The lady smiled and said, every stroke of your homework is perfunctory, while the words written by Guanqin are carefully considered, and it's only when I'm blind that I can't see the difference. Ling Chan. Guanqin does take her studies very seriously. If it weren't for letting Chan take her to learn, a little maid like her wouldn't have been able to practice calligraphy in her lifetime. Surprisingly, it was exposed here. It's hard to see such a big difference. Madam dismissed Ling Chan's original teacher and personally came to teach her. Ling Chan said, Madam, the body of 1,000 gold, how could you stoop to teach me? The lady smiled, it doesn't matter. I'm too idle. That night, Ling Chan lay on the desk and wrote a distress letter to the twins with her crooked and twisted dog-crawling handwriting, crying blood every word. Although everyone is not familiar, it makes Chan believe that these two kind-hearted boys will not turn a blind eye to death. The next day, the twins tried their best and kept pestering their wife all day. As a small slave who couldn't stand the stage, Ling Chan was able to lie beautiful all day on the soft big bed in his wife's side room. The moon rises in the night sky. Ling Chan sat in front of the dressing table, watching the piano behind her, combing her hair. The window sill buckled twice. Guanqin's face changed slightly and he hesitated, maybe it's two young masters. Only they would secretly come to see Ling Chan. The window has opened. There are indeed twins outside the window. Fu Wenxi asked with concern, did you have a good rest today? Fu Wenzhang sneered and said, what a big deal, can't you bear it? The identical faces, but completely different personalities, make this pair of brothers very easy to distinguish. Ling Chan gave her younger brother a sweet smile and said, thank you, second young master, for helping me. As he turned his gaze towards his brother, his smile narrowed and he said solemnly, thank you, young master. Fu Wenzhang sensitively sensed this subtle difference. It seems that Fu Wenxi is the person she can relax and face, while Fu Wenzhang is the villain who needs to be treated with caution. He felt a subtle discomfort in his heart, and his words became even worse. Just like you, still thinking about going to the palace to fight for wealth and status. Brother. You know this is not what Akan wants, Fu Wenxi said before she could say anything. Ling Chan was not angry and said, what does it look like to be like me? She chuckled lightly and stood up from behind the table, bowing with satisfaction. Her black hair flowed down her shoulder like flowing water, revealing a small, snow-white and dazzling back neck. Thank you two brothers for helping me today, she said. The moon in the sky shines brightly, while the moon in the human world is pure and gentle. The twins fell silent for a moment. A smile came from behind Ling Chan, and the twins suddenly changed their faces. Madame Fu stood by the door, looking at the three of them with a faint voice that seemed to suppress her raging anger. You two have been pestering me all day today, just to make Chan. I don't know, your relationship is so good. The next target player has appeared. That's right, it's Madam. Our human wrench is like this, men and women are not afraid of it. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 5. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. Familiar main hall, familiar people. The lady sat on the purple sandalwood chair in the main seat, her eyes cold and silent. A maid dressed in green, standing apart on both sides, neither speaking nor laughing, like a mud puppet. Ling Chan lost her seat and knelt quietly on the ground, with a figure like a slender willow, slender and beautiful, still so pitiable. The system is heartbroken, woo 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 woo, is the floor cold? Does the knee hurt? This despicable guy, how can he bear to make you kneel? Don't be afraid. I will definitely protect you. Ling Chan was a bit curious, how are you going to protect me? I can block your pain. The system said, even if he abuses you, we are not afraid. I can't do it, made Chan weak and pitiful. I can't be hurt by Madame Fu's terrifying gaze, I'm going to be scared to death. This is a silly system. Immediately, I want Madame Fu to hold me in her arms and call me heartfelt. This is Ling Chan, who has a clear chance of winning. Madame's anger is rising high. She actually believed Ling Chan. She sincerely sympathized with this lonely and weak girl, moved her to her own yard, taught her carefully, and even made Chan entangle with her two sons. Damn girl. Madame Fu said coldly, don't you have anything to explain? Ling Chan lowered her eyebrows and said, please calm down, madam. Madame Fu gritted her teeth and said, are you still pretending? Didn't you just be very capable? My two sons, one after the other, have more ideas, but they are constantly being manipulated by you. You have a lot of skills. I have no intention of doing this, said Ling Chan, looking up suddenly. Ling Chan bit her lower lip and tears welled up in her eyelashes. Madame's two children are coming to me, how dare I refuse? Madame Fu frowned and said, they've been looking for you before. Ling Chan said softly, previously, when the master was teaching, the young master had already come. Asked me to write a letter to tell him everything. Ling Chan dared not disobey. The system was taken aback and said, did he say that? Ling Chan smiled lightly and said, so what if there's no? If Madame doesn't order Chan, you can also ask the young master. Fu Wenzhang will not expose me. Madame Fu snorted coldly, so you turn a blind eye to my words. Ling Chan's eyes turned red and she said, I should have followed Madame's orders, but the two young masters are Madame's children. Their eyes are like Madame's. Whenever he looks at me, it's like Madame is looking at me. Madame is looking at me, how can I refuse? Madame, take me in, nurture me, save me in the midst of fire and water, not from the grace of rebirth. I admire Madame, said Chan, with her disheveled black hair and watery starry eyes. Her eyes seemed to be gazing at the gods in the sky, focused and hot. Starlight shone in her eyes, and Madame Fu was watched by Ling Chan, feeling a little uneasy. Madame Fu. Are you saying that you approached them because of me? I dare not disobey Madame, but I did not intentionally approach the two young masters, Ling Chan said softly. However, I am always greedy and want to get closer to Madame. If I can establish a good relationship with the two young masters, if they can give me some kind words in front of Madame, if Madame can like me more. Making Chan's cheeks blush, she made a slip of her tongue. Madame Fu was gazed upon by her affectionate gaze, and for a moment she sat restless, her heart beating like a drum. I don't like you being close to them. Mrs. Fu's attitude softened. Madame Fu blushed. The system was stunned. What Madame is worried about will never happen, Ling Chan said firmly. I serve Madame like a mother, and the two young masters are more like brothers to me. How could my younger sister think of her brother? brother. Mrs. Fu murmured as she gazed at the delicate and beautiful girl in front of her, suddenly having a plan in mind. Ling Chan is going to be sent to the palace. She admires herself so much, and the people in the palace are full of honey swords and hidden knives in their smiles. She is so innocent, and if someone gives a little advantage, she wags her tail at them. How should she live in the palace? It's better to take her as an adopted daughter. For the sake of her own face, Lady Shu can also take care of this foolish girl, without worrying about what those two naughty brats will do to her sister. Madame Fu never imagined that she would marry a female slave, but the tearful girl in front of her was really touching, making Chan show her sincerity towards her. Madame Fu couldn't help but want to treat her better. Madame Fu sighed and her eyes softened. Would you be willing to be my daughter? Madam. Ling Chan suddenly lifted her head, and tears in her eyes, which were about to crumble, finally slipped down her cheeks. Me, how do I deserve to? Ling Chan's face turned crimson and her eyes were hot. Looking into Mrs. Fu's eyes, a strong emotion overflowed. Her demeanor seemed to be loudly saying that I was willing. Madame Fu smiled with satisfaction and said gently, "Good child, come to my mother." Ling Chan panicked and got up, seeming to have been kneeling for too long, with a slight stumble in her movements. Madame Fu frowned and stood up, quickly stepping forward, ignoring the maids beside her. She even helped Ling Chan with her own hands. "Good boy, is it knee pain?" Ling Chan remained silent, lowered her head, leaned against Madame Fu's arms, and began to cry. Her fair and tender little face turned pink from crying, with a pitiful expression that made Fu's heart melt. Fu's wife refused to fake someone else's hand and allowed a group of maids to follow behind empty-handed. She personally carried Ling Chan back to her bedroom. "Madam," Ling Chan touched the silk quilt on her body and whispered, "How can I sleep with Madam?" Madame Fu touched her smooth black hair, which was so dark that there was no speckled color. She also thought of the withered yellow hair color of Ling Chan when she first arrived, feeling a little proud. How well she had taken care of this child. Upon hearing this, Man casually said, "What's wrong with my daughter and mother sleeping together? Your hair has been well taken care of." Ling Chan rubbed his head against Madame's palm and obediently said, "The batter that Grandma brought me, I drink it every day. Although the taste is strange," the old lady said, "it was bestowed upon me by the lady, and she treated me well. Of course. This is the hair care formula she obtained with a lot of money." The once pale and skinny child was nurtured into a water-spirited little beauty by herself. Mrs. Fu's heart surged with satisfaction, and she smiled and said, "Why are you still called Madam?" Ling Chan's face burned red and she whispered, "Mother." What a mother's heart. Madame Fu hugged her in her arms, smiled kindly, and said, "Lift up your pants, Mom will give you medicine." Okay. I won. Host is so strong. Host is so great. My host is the best in the world. This night passed in the midst of Madame Fu's frantic motherly love. The next morning, Madame Fu hugged Ling Chan and announced the news of taking her as an adopted daughter. Marquis Xianwei didn't say a word, and the twins had different expressions. Mrs. Fu smiled happily and said, "That's the decision. I will send a post to my family and friends, inviting them to attend my daughter's family recognition banquet. Mother, please think twice." Fu Wenjiang gritted his teeth and said, "Ling Chan is just a female slave. How can she be your daughter? He doesn't need sisters." Madame Fu asked Fu Wenxi with a pleasant expression, "Ah Bao, what do you think?" Abao is the nickname of Fu Wenxi, which was called out in public. Fu Wenxi felt very embarrassed and blushed, saying, "I really like Ling Chan. I will get along well with my sister." The sister muttered, "I thought this kid liked you." Fu Wenxi. Fu Wenjiang was furious. "What do you mean? You don't like Ling Chan, why did you ask me to give her a gift?" "I like it." Fu Wenxi defended himself, so wouldn't it be better for my mother to take Ling Chan as her adopted daughter? Ling Chan is my younger sister, and we have become even closer now. Isn't that good? So bright and clear, so clear and upright. I think my own thoughts are dirty. Fu Wenzhang remained calm and turned his head before leaving. Fu Wenxi quickly stood up, told his parents to step back, and hurriedly followed suit. Marquis Xianwei nodded to his wife and said, "It's all up to you to arrange, don't worry about those two kids." Immediately, he also left the seat. Madame Fu looked at Ling Chan and pondered in her heart. Ling Chan did not deceive her, it was indeed these two thugs who first teased people. Two troublesome things. A Bao has a simple mind for Ling Chan, but a Zhu is precocious and has some opinions on beautiful girls. Madame Fu advised Ling Chan, in the future, play more with your second brother. If your eldest brother has a hot temper and hurts you, it won't be good. I know, Ling Chan said obediently. Big brother doesn't like me, I won't bother his eyes. Mrs. Fu rubbed her head, feeling a bit addicted to touching Ling Chan's head. Good kid, she said. The system in her mind was still struggling, and Ling Chan explained to it. No one can bear to have lovers who eventually become siblings. Although we are not lovers yet, Fu Wenzhang wants to have this kind of relationship with me, so naturally he cannot accept me being adopted as his adopted daughter by Mrs. Fu and becoming his sister. And Fu Wenxi. He's a bit interesting. Some people find it difficult to break through ethics, while for others, taboo sibling relationships are even more stimulating. Oh. Ah. The system was dumbfounded. Fu Wenxi. Doesn't he look like such a pervert, does he? It's not like that, made Chan smile. But I'm used to thinking people are in the worst direction. Fu Wenxi may be a different kind of person. He likes my beauty, but only appreciates it and doesn't want to take it for himself. He admires me like he admires flowers and birds. Since he doesn't have a dirty mind, he naturally won't object. Guess, what kind of person is the word? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. Fu Wenzhang's opposition cannot shake Mrs. Fu's decision. Ling Chan became Mrs. Fu's adopted daughter and the younger sister of the twins. There is an additional young lady in the Duke of Xuanwei's mansion. Miss, it's really not easy. The young lady is moving into a new yard, and the lady has opened a warehouse. Good things are all being moved out, and the dowry is made of high-grade wood and furniture. She sleeps on a golden silk Nanmo relief bed and drinks water from a June kiln crabapple bowl. The young lady studies music and doesn't even like the qin, zheng, and xiao flute. Surprisingly, the lady has brought out a set of bronze bells from the pre-qin period for the young lady. Neither young master has such indulgence. Madam, what kind of madness is this? Some people who have seen Ling Chan can understand Mrs. Fu's feelings very well. Miss is a fairy in the sky. As long as she smiles, who can refuse her? Such heartless people may not have been born yet. Miss ate your brain. Who didn't know she was a slave who was bought into the mansion? But as the young lady grew up day by day, more and more people in the mansion saw her. Such a girl. Of course, she is a fairy from the sky. How could such an immortal fetus be born in the human world? Today's two brothers are also in the corner, under the eaves, and in various obscure corners, they hear the whispers of servants, their voices fanatical and admiring, praising Ling Chan. Fu Wenzhang said. I really feel like she's a witch from western Xinjiang. I definitely know how to use poison. And his younger brother, who was sick and suffering from a shortage of ointment, said with a natural expression, Ling Chan is just so good, of course everyone likes her. Fu Wenzhang sneered softly, it's really hopeless. I don't know if I'm talking about others or myself. In the bustling main room, Madame Fu casually dropped a bomb and said, Miss, it's almost time for her wedding. Let's go to the capital to have the wedding banquet. It's time to propose a marriage to her. Talking about marriage. Fu Wenjiang sneered upon hearing the words, I'm afraid we're not going to sell it to the palace by weight, are we? Boss. Marquis Xianwei frowned and stopped drinking from Fu Wenjiang. How did you talk to your mother? Immediately, with a gentle expression on his face, he turned to Fu Fuman and said, Ling Chan has been serving her parents and siblings carefully in our family for these years. I can see how much you care for her. Since it's my own child, I don't necessarily have to use it to find that incredible wealth. It's also good to stay at home and find someone nearby to marry. What's good about it? Mrs. Fu sneered, Your noble lord, are you addicted to living in this remote and impoverished county? You don't plan to return to the capital in your lifetime. Let your children also stay with you in this mountain corner. Marquis Xianwei was scolded by his wife, but he didn't dare to get angry. He just smiled and said, I see that you feel sorry for this child. I'm afraid it will make Chan suffer in the palace in the future, and you will also feel uncomfortable. Fu Wenxi ignored his parents who had been arguing with him, frowned and approached Ling Chan, whispering, Is my sister willing to enter the palace? If not, I will definitely. Ling Chan shook her head at him, and before he could finish speaking, she stood up and bowed to Marquis Xianwei and Lady Fu, Father, Mother, I am willing to enter the palace. Sister. Fu Wenxi was shocked. All you need to do is express your true thoughts. We are all your family, and no one will force you. Ling Chan said calmly, I rely entirely on my mother's great kindness to achieve what I have today. Now, if I have the opportunity to repay my mother, I will serve my life. The soft and weak girl, with a fiery glow in her pitch-black starry pupils, is burning steadfastly. Madame Fu held Ling Chan in her arms, feeling very distressed. My mother can't bear to part with you, but you can't stay in the Marquis's mansion anymore. Marquis Xuanwei's gaze at you is becoming more and more explicit. Tisk, it's really like a toad wants to eat swan meat. Mother, Ling Chan whispered as she nestled in Mrs. Fu's arms, I know your kindness to me in my heart. Madame Fu's hand caressed Chan's cold long hair, and she looked into the girl's trusting eyes, sighing deeply. This is a good child, she has been raising her for these years, and she really feels sorry for Ling Chan as her own heartache. Which mother doesn't expect her daughter to be good? The biggest reason she adopted Ling Chan as her adopted daughter was because the child was good-looking, but now she has started to dislike this face. Ling Chan has this stunning face, she's just a marquis lady, how can she protect it? Can only be sent to the palace, allowing Ling Chan to cling to the supreme power to protect herself. Fu Fu said, Don't blame your mother. Entering the palace is your best way. I know, I believe in my mother, said Ling Chan, looking up with beautiful features that seemed to glow. Of course, you have to enter the palace. She only wants the best. If she doesn't enter the palace, how can she make this country bow down to her? Ling Chan buried her face on Mrs. Fu's shoulder and slowly pulled up the corner of her lips. Show a beautiful yet poisonous smile that no one can see. Madame Fu patted Ling Chan's back and hesitated for a moment. Your brother said he doesn't trust you and wants to pray for your blessings. He hopes we can go to the temple together to worship the Buddha before you leave. Do you want to go? This is a good thing, Ling Chan said. Why not go? They were both born to me, and I know best that they were probably holding back bad water and preparing to cause trouble, Mrs. Fu smiled bitterly. But always speak clearly, Ling Chan said softly. I want my brothers to understand my intentions. I don't want them to misunderstand you. Green mountains and clear waters, birds and sparrows harmoniously compose a moving movement together. The Daizong temple is bustling with incense and has always been bustling with people. Madame Fu doesn't like to put on airs when traveling. Apart from Ling Chan and the twins, she only brought a few maids. Madame Fu believes in Buddhism and always talks to the abbot when she comes back to the temple. She does not restrict a few children from listening to Buddhism with her, but allows them to go out and play on their own. There are many people in the temple, and Madame Fu is worried about Lingchan's safety. Every time, she specifically reminds Guanqin to take good care of the young lady. Fu Wenjiang and Fu Wenxi usually run horses on their own, but today they are abnormal. They are guarding Lingchan, with two tall young men on one left and one right, sandwiched between a weak girl in the middle, like two door gods, pushing the audience behind. The end of spring has passed, and the sunshine in early summer is warm and bright. There are two young and energetic youths by the side, and the damp heat surges, causing Chan to quickly shed fine and dense beads of sweat. Sweat beads seeped out and rolled off the delicate skin, falling into the light green gauze that made Chan pale. A dark color faintly spread, revealing a fair background. Fu Wenjiang took a glance, his eyes darkened, and he turned his face cold and pale, looking straight ahead, unwilling to take another look at Lingchan. Fu Wenxi saw Lingchan's awkward expression, but smiled. He took out a handkerchief and said with a smile, "Sister, wipe your sweat." Lingchan reached out to take the silk handkerchief, but Fu Wenxi bent down and his already grown face approached Lingchan, carefully wiping his sweat. The grown twins were much taller than Lingchan. Lingchan stopped and obediently raised her face and closed her eyes, making it easier for Fu to hear the words and actions. She heard Fu Wenjiang's cold growl next to her, seeming impatient and vicious, as the fierce maid said, "You can't go blind one by one. Didn't you see that the young lady is all sweaty? Brother, don't blame Guanqin. She's at the back and can't see me sweating anymore." Lingchan argued for her maid, but she opened her eyes and was startled by the enlarged face in front of her. Fu Wenxi got very close at some point, his face flushed with emotion, and said, "My sister is so cute." Lingchan said dryly, "Thank you." Fu Wenjiang sneered and said, "What's the use of a maid who can't even see the master's needs?" "This clothes are all soaked through," Fu Wenjiang said with his eyes open. "Brother, take you to change clothes." He picked up Lingchan and ran away. "Wait, young master." Guanqin pulled out his legs and chased after him. "The male pilgrim cannot go over. The clean room is not over there either. We brought the young lady's clothes. Where does an elder brother take a younger sister to change clothes? Hee, guess what the twins want? It's an old dog blood routine. It's easy to guess." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. Guanqin's liver and gallbladder were split, and she was so anxious that tears welled up in her eyes. But how could her maids run faster than the two young masters who were tall and powerful? Not to mention the twin servants quickly gathered around and stopped Guanqin and others. They were polite, but they firmly watched Guanqin and did not allow them to go find his wife. Watching the piano quickly calmed down. The young lady instructed her that there may be some issues with this trip to pay respects to the Buddha. It seems that this is the case right now. The two young masters should not have plotted against the young lady. Since her young lady had anticipated it earlier, she should have had a backup and wouldn't have been bullied by anyone recklessly. At this moment, the young lady who had already had a backup lay on Fu Wenjiang's arm and was about to vomit. Fu Wenjiang picked her up and ran. In front of her was a muscular forearm tightly wrapped around her, and behind her was a hot chest. The ups and downs of Fu Wenjiang's breathing were transmitted to Lingchan along with his body temperature. Lingchan was dizzy from his shaking, and vigorously patted her arm in front of her. "I'm so dizzy, brother, I'm going to vomit." Fu Wenjiang clicked and threw the little girl in his arms, who was even softer than cotton, up. He quickly changed her direction and continued to run forward with one hand. Lingchan sat on Fu Wenjiang's right forearm, his warm palm wrapped around her thigh. She stared at the hairpin above Fu Wenjiang's head and suddenly felt a little speechless. Fu Wenjiang has never hugged anyone before. If she didn't reach out to protect her and was running at high speed, she would definitely fall off. There was no other choice but to wrap around Fu Wenjiang's neck and bend down as much as possible to maintain her body balance. Fu Wenjiang ran wildly while giving her an approving look. A few minutes later, Fu Wenjiang, who successfully shook off the maid, placed Ling Chan on a branch. Fu Wenjiang held on to the trunk of the tree, panting heavily. He looked up at Ling Chan, and beads of sweat slid down his chin bone into his collar. Ling Chan complained, "You're shaking me so hard that I feel dizzy." "Is that what you want to say?" Fu Wenjiang couldn't help but laugh. "You have been kidnapped by me now." Ling Chan said, "Are you putting me on such a high tree branch for fear of me running away?" "This branch is not far from the ground, and it's just on Fu Wenjiang's shoulder. There are twins, neither of whom can easily jump down here, but she can't." "Right." Fu Wenjiang laughed wickedly and threatened her, "You will die soon." Ling Chan. "Brother is joking again." "Brother, don't keep scaring Ling Chan." Fu Wensi, who had run away from them before, walked over leisurely with a few horses. Shen Jun's BMW was carrying several packages, which were randomly packed with a few clothes and daily necessities. It made Chan's sharp eyes see that there were also laundry items and snacks she brought when she went out. Fu Wenjiang said, "Are you afraid of being kidnapped?" Ling Chan, "Why?" Fu Wensi explained, "My brother and I don't want to see you forced into the palace." "I'm not forced, this is my choice," said Ling Chan's eyes as bright as water. "This is my mother's will," Fu Wenjiang interrupted coldly. "It's not yours. Do you have any thoughts about the future yourself?" Fu Wensi coaxed a child gently, "Speak up and see." "This is your life," he said with surprising patience. "Do you have any dreams? Do you have anything that must be accomplished? Do you have anything you want? Anything is possible." So Ling Chan obediently said, "Madam's wish is my wish. I want everything to be good for Madam. I want her to return to the capital as I wish, and I hope the two young masters can compete and bring glory to Madam." The warm sunshine, passing through the sparse branches, falls into the clear and washed eyes of the young girl. She has the most beautiful eyes in the world, but cannot see herself, and her heart is filled with only another person. Fu Wensi thought absent-mindedly, if everyone's life were an answer sheet, someone would hold her hand and fill in the answer for her before making Chan learn to solve the problem on her own. This person is his mother. Why can't it be him? Fu Wenjiang remained silent and reached out his hand to lift Ling Chan off the branch, placing it on the horse's back. "Brother, are you taking me home?" exclaimed Ling Chan in panic. "Hostages, speak less." "You have already been kidnapped," Fu Wenjiang announced with gritted teeth. "Brother." Fu Wensi snapped back, "We agreed to let our sister choose it herself." "She's hopeless," Fu Wenjiang kept moving his hands, "can't you tell? It's not like this." Ling Chan tightened Fu Wenjiang's robe and said word by word, "Please don't belittle my life like this. My mother saved me. If it weren't for my mother, I wouldn't know where to drift now. The wealth and food I have now, as well as the care and help of my two brothers, are all due to my mother. I hope my mother lives well, and I am willing to give everything I can to make her life better. Why not? Being grateful for kindness is a virtue, and I don't think it's an inferior idea." Moreover, Ling Chan's voice suddenly lowered, seeming a bit shy, "Mother loves me. She won't harm me. My mother is considering me, and I believe she has chosen the path that best suits me." Ling Chan mustered up great courage and looked directly into Fu Wensi's eyes. "Brother, do you think that a mother would sell her daughter for wealth?" Fu Wensi turned his face awkwardly and said, "The hostages should speak less." "You're right. But I am not willing to let you go." "Host, were you intentional?" The original lord is exactly the same as your current person. Because of the small kindness bestowed by others, I have offered my body, reputation, soul, and life. King redeemed her, and she devoted herself wholeheartedly to him, dedicating everything she had. It's hard to even say it's love. A spider silk hanging from heaven in a desperate situation, she desperately grasped it, but ignored the dim Kongzhuang road. Finally, the spider twisted and broke the silk, and she fell to pieces. The original owner jumped off the city wall because the court officials accused An Wang of doting on her, saying that An Wang was a foolish ruler with only beauty in his eyes. She is determined to use her life to uphold the reputation of King An Ha. Guess what? Follow up on benefits. Should Ling Chan have her twins kidnapped or not? It's up to my angel readers to decide. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. As the sun set in the western mountains, the remaining warmth of the sun was still present, but a cold wind had already blown through the gaps in the wooden planks of the cabin, causing Chan to shiver. This is a small wooden house in the mountains. The twins took Ling Chan all afternoon to get here, and they seemed to have walked many times. Not only were they particularly familiar with the journey, but their state was also quite relaxed. After arriving at the small wooden cabin, Fu Wenzhang shouted to go hunting, leaving Fu Wenxi and Ling Chan here and running alone on horseback. Fu Wenxi picked up the package from the horse, flipped through it, and found Ling Chan's cloak. He shook his cloak and was about to put it on Ling Chan, but Ling Chan pressed down on his wrist through her sleeve. "I'll do it myself," the girl politely smiled and refused his approach without leaving a trace. Fu Wenxi forcibly kidnapped his younger sister, who was rightfully in the first place. However, he found it difficult to face her resistance. He walked around the wooden house and brought out a large stack of firewood. He flattered him and said, "Sister, are you still cold? Do you want to have a fire?" Ling Chan frowned and said, "How can we set fire to a mountain fire? What if it triggers a wildfire?" Fu Wenxi was about to put down the firewood and heard Ling Chan say in a small voice, "I haven't roasted the fire yet." The girl lowered her head, with a hint of pink on her fair skin, like a flower rolling with dewdrops in bud. Fu Wenxi immediately said, "There's a small stream near here. Where can we go? I'll grill fish for you to eat." Ling Chan looked expectant, but Fu Wenxi was dazed by her sight. So he held a large bundle of firewood, making himself covered in dust and afraid of choking Ling Chan. He asked his sister to hold on to his clothes and follow him from a distance. The creek is very close to the wooden house, but only a dozen meters away. The sunlight jumps on the water surface, shimmering with waves. Fu Wenxi first found a big stone for Ling Chan and asked the girl to sit and watch her busy schedule. He pulled up his trouser legs, held a long sword in his hand, and inserted fish in the stream. His eyes were quick and his hands were cruel. The knife was deadly. The stream under the sunset was already filled with coldness, and scattered water droplets splashed on Ling Chan, causing her to shrink her shoulders. Fu Wenxi glanced over here, put aside several fish in the fork, walked over to Ling Chan's side, and began to make a fire. He fidgeted with the wood and didn't have any time to talk, chattering and boasting about how delicious his grilled fish was. Let Chan remain silent. Fu Wenxi gradually fell silent. Without the abrupt human voice, the natural pulsating sound becomes clearer and purer. The evening breeze in the forest gently brushed against the riverbank, and the damp firewood made a slight crackling sound. The warm orange flames danced, and Fu Wen lowered his eyes. His long eyelashes cast a shadow, focusing on observing the grilled fish in his hand. Ling Chan's voice came from behind him, "Brother, where are we going?" Fu Wenxi said, "I'm going to Beijing to take the imperial examination, and my brother is going to join the military at the border. I originally wanted you to choose for yourself and see where you want to go. But now, we plan to accompany you for a while until you find your direction. Don't be afraid, no matter what happens, we will always be with you." The sky was already dark, and in the dim glow of the fire, Chan sat on a large stone with her knees crossed, fragile like dewdrops on tender petals. After a brief moment of beauty, it would disappear into the world. Fu Wenxi didn't dare to look at her. He turned his back and stared at the fish, spreading his language aimlessly, searching for words that Ling Chan might like. My brother and I haven't been to many places, but we've explored this area many times. This mountain is very beautiful. Walking more than 10 miles west, there is a magical line of sky with a ghost axe. Passing through it is a river valley. The water of the small waterfall is clear, sweet, and cold, and the fish raised here are also delicious, smooth, tender, and delicious. Unfortunately, I'm in a hurry today, otherwise I would definitely have brought it for you to taste. It sounds great. Ling Chan seemed a bit moved. Can I go take a look? Of course. Fu Wenxi immediately said, the peach blossoms in the mountains are still blooming. There is a beautiful peach forest upstream of the waterfall. It is the season of falling petals, and the red and soft petals will flow down the water, which is also very beautiful. You will definitely like it. The fish was cooked quickly, with a crispy and fragrant aroma. Fu Wenxi was extremely satisfied and eagerly handed it to Ling Chan, inviting her to taste it with great anticipation. Ling Chan reached her mouth, but suddenly a horse's roar came from the forest. Fu Wenxiang has an accident. Fu Wenxi's face changed and he jumped up. He wanted Ling Chan to wait in the room, but he saw Ling Chan put down the grilled fish and stood up. Let's go together. She said seriously, I will be very worried about you. Fu Wenxi quickly made up his mind and pulled out his long arm, leading Ling Chan to mount his horse. I quickly found Fu Wenxiang. He was tightly bound and left in front of the magnificent carriage. The curtain of the carriage was lifted, revealing the elegant and luxurious Lady Fu inside. In the bright flames, Lady Fu's face was heavy and frightening. As soon as Ling Chan's eyes lit up, she was about to call for help. Fu Wenxi covered her mouth with a pleading voice, don't shout, don't make a sound. How willing is Ling Chan? Her feet stepped forward heavily, and the withered branches and leaves beneath her made a crisp sound of breaking, especially clear in the quiet forest. The patrolling guards immediately turned their gaze towards the direction where they were hiding. No need for Madame Fu's orders, someone rushed over immediately to arrest the two people. Fu Wenxi hugged Ling Chan and ran away, but Ling Chan was very uncooperative and kept trying to make a sound, dancing and interfering with him. Well-trained guards are not easy to get rid of. Fu Wenxi was quickly caught and thrown next to his brother, also tied up in various ways. The two exchanged a glance and both saw the confusion in each other's eyes. They are very familiar with this mountain forest, have stepped on it in advance, carefully designed the route, and walked on their own paths, not even the local hunters know. Why did their mother catch up so quickly? But instead, Ling Chan was held in Mrs. Fu's arms, painfully examining the gray marks she had rubbed in the mountains. Good child, you have suffered. Mrs. Fu sighed as she touched her face. Fortunately, you were clever and left a mark along the way. Otherwise, this deep mountain forest wouldn't be able to find you so quickly. Mark. The twins changed their faces. Ling Chan, Fu Wenxiang smiled, I underestimated you. Madame Fu immediately turned black and scolded the two thugs with a stern expression. You still have the face to talk. Kidnapping your sister. You two are quite impressive. You are still walking into the deserted mountains. You two are not afraid of rough skin and thick flesh. What should I do to make Chan do? Ling Chan grabbed Mrs. Fu's sleeve and whispered, let me talk to your two brothers. Ling Chan walked up to the twins with a calm voice and said calmly, the two older brothers are very puzzled. Why did the mother come so quickly? The twins were tightly tied with hemp rope, silently looking at this usually weak, kind, and reassuring sister. Because I have put in a lot of effort, Ling Chan said with a slight smile. Today, when I was on the horse, I asked my brother for dim sum, not for eating, but for marking on the road. I was afraid that the birds would take away the dim sum, so I used my hairpin to mark my name on the land and the trees, I tore up a thin gauze garment and hid the broken clothes in the bushes. She looked at Fu Wenxi, smiled apologetically and shook her sleeves. In addition to a few crushed dim sum, a large number of pebbles fell to the ground. I want to go to the river because there are not enough dim sum. I need to take some new and more convenient things to mark. Ling Chan squatted down, and the soft palm of the girl grabbed the hands of her two brothers. She sincerely said, I know that the two brothers are worried about me, afraid that I will be bullied when I enter the palace. But I can protect myself. Now I have proven this to you. Please rest assured. Ling Chan smiled and said. A domesticated pet that has always shown off its gentle and adorable appearance, revealing its fangs. There were no comments at all. So I wrote according to my own ideas. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 9. The Imperial Road of Rural Women. The night was already dim, and only the guards and torches in the forest were emitting a faint light. But it cannot illuminate the dark faces of the twins. Fu Wenzhong felt like a joke. Make Chan look like a gentle and weak younger sister, who will sweetly raise her head to call her elder brother, polite yet approachable. Like a well-behaved, unconscious puppet doll. But Fu Wenzhong knew it wasn't like that. Without that obedient doll, he would write letters and seek help from strangers he had only met once because he didn't want to attend class. She would not be obedient in front of her mother, but would follow her brothers over the wall every day to watch lanterns, fly kites, and eat tomatoes on sticks on the street, revealing a lively smile that she would never have at home. He always remembers the reluctant expression on Chan's face before returning home. He thought she would prefer life outside the house. Self-righteous. Fu Wenxi told himself not to ask. Don't ask. Don't say anything like this, everything is fine. His sister is smart and brave, and she can protect herself. He can rest assured that she will leave, and they will not be separated for long. They will meet again when he enters Beijing to take the exam. They will still be harmonious siblings. He watched as Ling Chan lowered her head to untie the rope for herself, and the girl's fair and tender fingers struggled to scrape through the rough hemp rope, leaving red marks. Sister, Fu Wenxi heard his voice hoarse, his tongue seeming to have his own thoughts, and he said inappropriate words on his own. Are we going to see the peach blossoms tomorrow? Coincidentally, my mother is also here, and we haven't been on a trip together for a long time. Let's go together tomorrow. We only worshipped Buddha together in the morning, Ling Shanru said softly. My mother found a nanny for me to teach me the rules of the palace. Time is very tight, so I may not be able to squeeze out time. You want to go to Yixianshan not because you're curious about the beautiful scenery in my mouth, but because you want to disrupt our plans and delay time. Fu Wenxi raised his face and looked at Ling Chan, asking, is that so? Yes. My brother and I tied you up, and the surface calmness was just a disguise. You're very angry, aren't you? Fu Wenxi almost blurted out. No. Can't ask. That's it, whitewashing peace. They are still good siblings. What kind of good siblings are they? Fu Wenxi heard a voice in his heart sneering, you don't understand her at all. This child's play like kidnapping only lasted for half a day, and then the child's play came to an end. The twins were confined and were not allowed to step on the discharge door. They were not allowed to leave before Ling Chan set off. Damn it, this kind of punishment is too light. The system was very dissatisfied, and it complained while also comforting Ling Chan, don't be sad, these two villains will have their misfortune in the future. I'm not angry, making Chan indifferent, I've done too much to them. They must be feeling very uncomfortable now. Self-righteous understanding and unwanted help made those two knights angry. I always felt that the host had said something terrifying, and the system trembled delicately before quickly saying, you're about to enter the palace. I'll make up for the plot for you. All the villains in the palace, I can't let you be bullied. Well behaved, Ling Chan was too lazy to watch the plot and tormented her eyes. She casually said, I won't be bullied. Generally speaking, she is the only one who bullies others. But how to put it, and Wang was able to coax his original body to die for him, making Chan think his methods would be a bit more tactful. Instead of throwing things in public like a child who doesn't get sugar. Madame Fu and concubine Shu have an old relationship. Madame Fu has a beautiful daughter, and concubine Shu wants to find a daughter. Lol. The two of them hit it off at once, and when the two children reached their age, concubine Shu took Ling Chan to the palace to cultivate a relationship with Prince An. But King An is unwilling. He is arrogant and doesn't like the daughter of a marquis who has been excluded from the capital, let alone an adopted daughter. Mrs. Fu told Ling Chan to be prepared and not to be spoiled. But no one expected how much the young and energetic boy despised the arrangements of his mother's consort. He rode alone in front of the palace gate, blocking Ling Chan's path into the palace. The arrogant and rebellious young man glanced at Ling Chan's convoy, sneered, and ordered his servants, bring me my bow. Prince. The servant trembled as he handed him the bow and arrow. This is not in accordance with the rules. You can leave now, and Wang instructed without moving his eyebrows and eyes, don't get in the way. The servant ran away in a fierce battle. King An strung his arrow and held his breath, waiting for his prey. His hands were very stable, without any trembling. When hunting, he has always been very patient. Prince An is guarding the entrance of the palace. He even took a bow and arrow. The voice of Guan Qin cried, what should I do? Miss, you are a guest of Lady Shu. How dare a prince dare to use force in front of the palace gate? Are those guards all decorations? He didn't dare, Ling Chan comforted and watched the piano gently. At most, he would scare me. She put on her hat, lifted the car curtain, stood next to the driver's position, and saw An Wang at a glance. In front of the magnificent and spacious palace gate, a young man dressed in red and white horses stood tall, with eyes like lacquered stars. When he saw Ling Chan, he raised his long eyebrows and pulled his bow, pointing steadily towards her. Spirited An Wang gave a wicked smile and shot the arrow. In the blink of an eye, the long arrow shot straight at the seemingly stunned young girl, and the cold iron, shining with cold light, easily tore open the thin brim of the gauze hat. The gauze was carried by a long arrow and left Ling Chan. The stunning expression of the young girl was exposed to the sky at this moment, and her fair skin was scratched with a bloodstain by the arrow, red and bright. A strong wind blew everywhere, causing people's hearts to sway and their bodies to boil hot. The wind caused the curtain cap on Chan's head to sway left and right. Ling Chan pursed her lips and casually threw the broken curtain hat onto the ground, instructing, it's broken, throw it away. Time seemed to flow again with her movements, and everything that was frozen returned to life. Dantezi snapped out of his noisy heartbeat and jumped off the railing, loudly rebuking him, third brother. How could you hold a sharp weapon in front of the palace gate? Prince An looked back and sneered coldly, Your Highness, have you seen enough of your younger brother's liveliness? Irregular. Dan Tai Ji suppressed the urgency in his chest and scolded Dan Tai Shi a few words, hurriedly catching up with Ling Chan's convoy. Ling Chan had already sat back in the carriage and calmly instructed Guan Qin, let's go to my grandfather's house. Madame asked her to advise Miss a little more not to get angry with Prince An. Looking at the glaring red marks on Ling Chan's face, Qian Qichin gritted her teeth and said, okay Mississippi. Her young lady is such a good person. Why do you have to compromise yourself and please others? Guanqin instructed the coachman to arrange for someone to first communicate with Ling Chan's maternal family. Ling Chan himself sat in the carriage, listening to the system gritting his teeth and cursing King An in various ways. I couldn't help but burst out with a slight smile. At this moment, a few gentle taps came from outside the carriage. We're getting a new map. Twins are temporarily offline, let's welcome new male guests. Crown Prince Dantezi. Currently, he appears to be a normal person on Wang Dantai. Chanbao has already arranged a heart-wrenching meal for him. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Imperial Road of Rural Women, 10. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 10. The Imperial Road of Rural Women, 10. Ling Chan lifted the car curtain. Amidst the dull and heavy curtains, a few slender and shiny fingers suddenly stretched out, and the curtain was pulled open. The beautiful and stunning little girl in the carriage poked her head out. Although she had been treated extremely impolitely, she did not see any anger, but instead had a faint smile and curiously asked, "Who are you?" Dan Taiji rarely gets nervous. He coughed lightly and said as gently as possible, "I am the brother of that boy from Dantai. I apologize to you on his behalf." Dan Taiji saw with sharp eyes that the curve of Ling Chan's mouth was straight. But she still looked very polite. Not only did she not directly throw the car curtain on his face, but she also nodded at him and said calmly, "Thank you." In Dan Taiji's not too long life, no girl has ever faced him with such a cold attitude, but strangely, he didn't feel angry. He looked at the shallow red mark on the girl's face and hesitated for a moment. Shouldn't we handle the wound on her face? It has already been processed. I only wiped off the spilled blood and didn't even apply any medicine. You can't treat such a beautiful face so hastily. Dan Taiji took out a bottle of wound medicine and handed it to Ling Chan. "This is a secret medicine from the palace, and applying it to your face won't leave scars easily." Ling Chan took it slowly, hesitated for a moment, and smiled obediently at Dan Taiji. "Thank you." Just a bottle of insignificant medicine, but it made Chan take off her guard against him and reveal her soft inner self. Dan Taijiwen said gently, "Can I give you a ride? When you come out of the capital, you are rejected by King An. Some people who don't have eyes may offend you. When I take you home, no one dares to speak ill of you." Ling Chan blinked her big eyes and said, "Are you supporting me?" I think so." "Why?" "You are a good girl," Dan Taiji said. "You should not be treated unfairly." Dan Taiji sent Ling Chan to Madame Fu's mother's house along the way. Madame Fu is actually Lin. She and concubine Shu are cousins. The Lin family is from a humble family, and they were able to prosper entirely because Lady Shu has become the favorite concubine of the current emperor. Lady Shu's father doesn't like reading and can't support the mud on the wall. He is still in business, and only Lady Fu's father is a 7th-grade Sesame official. The political resources bestowed by Emperor Shufei Meng were all used for this uncle. Madame Fu was able to marry the Marquis of Xianwei and become the Marquis's wife through this relationship. So, the ancestral home of Guan Qin is actually the ancestral home of An Wang Dantai. The Lin family has become a mess. Just now, Prince An clearly expressed his disgust towards Ling Chan, with a fierce attitude that led him to resort to violence in front of the palace gate. He hates Ling Chan. One is a luxurious noblewoman, and the other is a weak woman in a brothel. One is a biological grandson, and the other is a fake grandson. Why don't Miss Biao live outside? Someone said, "We can't provoke His Highness Prince An." Mrs. Lin sighed and said, "What's the use of living outside? She's our child now. If we drive her away, it's our family members who have been lost. What should we do then?" I picked her up from the side door and set up a small courtyard to send her to stay. Mrs. Lin gets angry when she thinks about it. When her daughter was at home, she looked shrewd. After marrying into the Marquis's mansion for so many years, she had disciplined the entire family of Marquis Xianwei obediently. How could she become middle-aged and start to lose consciousness? A foster daughter. How did you come up with this bad idea? The servant came to report, "Miss Biao's convoy has arrived at the door." Mrs. Lin nodded lightly, picked up her teacup and took a sip. "Take Miss Biao directly to the yard, say I'm tired, and ask her not to come and greet me." The servant was sweating profusely as he quickly approached Mrs. Lin. "His Highness the Crown Prince is also there. He is waiting for you outside the door to pick him up." The old man shook his hands and the porcelain cups in his hands fell to the ground, making a crisp cracking sound. She quickly stood up and instructed the large family in front of her, "Hurry, hurry, come with me to welcome your niece." Ha! His eldest daughter Law was still muttering, "Mom, you just said you could let her go by herself. She's just an adopted daughter, and it's not worth it for our whole family to welcome her." Mrs. Lin ignored her. This eldest daughter Law is used to whispering, and being a bad-mouthed person is not kind, but she is timid and dare not keep up. There is no need to waste time explaining to her, the crown prince is still waiting. Surprisingly able to move the crown prince. This adopted daughter is extraordinary. Her daughter's vision is good. Jia, the gate of Lin Mansion has been opened. A group of wealthy and influential women dressed in gold and silver rushed out of the door. The elderly lady, who was in charge, was deeply blessed and respectfully said, "Congratulations to your highness the crown prince." Dantezi glanced at Ling Chan with his spare light and continued speaking, "Look, I just said they will value you very much. This is your family." Ling Chan gave him an obedient smile and said, "I know it's because your highness is here. Thank you. Please let them get up. With you accompanying me on this trip, they won't bully me anymore." Dantezi was careful not to be seen through. He chuckled lightly and said, "In the capital, being too kind is not acceptable." With a restrained smile, he looked coldly at a group of women who were starting to tremble slightly and said calmly, "Get up." A group of people breathed a sigh of relief as if they had survived a disaster. Guan Qin helped Ling Chan get off the car and walked step by step towards the Lin mansion. Mrs. Lin, with a large group of people, dared not chat with the crown prince and surrounded the audience, chatting and asking for warmth. The colorful clothes and layers of jewelry concealed the delicate figure of the young girl. Dantezi wore a habitual polite smile and watched as she was overwhelmed by the crowd. But seeing the girl being surrounded and walking into the door, she turned her head hard and showed him a brilliant, grateful smile. The sky gradually darkened, but the sun seemed to be attached to her, reluctant to outline her figure with a faint light. In the dimly lit world, only she shone brightly. The grand gate of the Lin mansion, surrounded by noisy servants coming and going, was dim and blurred into a background, surrounded by the nobles of Ling Chan. Dantezi can only see Ling Chan. Damn it! The system is cursing again. Chan-chan's smile at him is his blessing. Why is he motionless? Is he a puppet? He's also the crown prince, not at all polite. Chan-chan, the system said, "You haven't read the original work, you don't know, this Dan Tai Ji is not a good thing. He is ruthless, don't believe him." Ling Chan smiled and said, "I know that in this small world, the only people I can trust are us Tonger, and only you are the best to me. The system's pride is almost on the rise. We are the best partners." Ling Chan was welcomed by Mrs. Lin to the courtyard where Mrs. Fu lived during her teenage years. The old lady sighed and said, "After your mother got married, no one has ever lived in that courtyard again. It would be just right for you to come and live now." Ling Chan glanced around. Some of the decorations were outdated, but they still don't look outdated today. They are clean and luxurious, clearly carefully maintained every day. Ling Chan smiled and said, "I'll just stay in my mother's boudoir. Would it be too bad?" Mrs. Lin paused for a moment, then took Ling Chan's hand and smiled affectionately, saying, "Although you are not your mother's biological child, her treatment of you is not much different from that of her biological child. Grandmother sees that you are also the granddaughter of her biological child. What's wrong with a daughter living in her mother's room? At first glance, it looks like a new place." Make Chan clear in her heart, Mrs. Lin also saw that the little girl was not easy to deceive. Thinking of the crown prince, she immediately brought up 1,000 passions and threw a shot of gold, silver, jewelry, sugar-coated shells, gently comforting the little girl's injured heart. Crown prince. She is so silly and kind system. She is so silly and kind Mrs. Lin. She's a bit shrewd. End of this chapter.